Podcast, audio commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign, Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 7, Deader. Okay. Well, welcome. This is episode 271 of the Clive Barker Podcast. And hello, Ed and Jose.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
And I'm Ryan. So we're going to be doing continuing our Clive Barker's A to Z commentaries in the chapter E is for Escape. We're going on from Halloween to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
And, that's quite a jump.
Yeah. We skipped over 2, which I like 1 and 2, and 3 I used to kind of like, and now I'm starting to feel a little different about it after having watched it again here recently.
Did you just watch it again before this?
Yeah.
Same here. I don't think I had ever watched this movie in its entirety before I researched for this commentary track. So it's always been the one that I always skip. I go from 1, 2, and 4, and for me, those are the best. And so it was interesting to get to know a little more about the movie and find out what the behind the scenes thing, the happenings behind the curtain for this movie.
Right.
This is what stopped me. This is where I stopped. After this movie, I never watched any more Halloween movies.
Oh, damn.
It's interesting for me because, I'm older than you guys and I was around, when these movies came out, at the theater and everything, So for me, it was totally different. Like, in other words, I liked it. I thought that, how Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, wanted to break away from the Michael Myers character and make it so that Halloween would be a like an anthology concept where every film would be a different story and they would have different director, different writer, and so I think that would be cool, like what they were going to possibly could have done with Hellraiser,
Yeah.
Speaking of Clive Barker stuff,
I was like 8 years old, and I was too young for this. But for you, didn't it feel like when you go to the theater, like, what is this crap? This isn't,
No, not at all. Because have you seen the trailer? Did you watch the trailer at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if all you had were the trailer to go by, you don't see Michael Myers in the trailer, and it seems like it's just a movie about the season of Halloween, and I'm a big mask collector, mask fan, and I was following the promotions about how they made those 3 masks, to go along with this movie.
Yeah, the Don Post Studios, right?
Right. I was a Don Post mask collector already in the 80s, and a mask maker myself, In 1985, I went to Japan. It's like I was watching this movie at the theater and stuff. So I have a completely different perspective, I think. Most people who are fans of the Halloween franchise think of it like you guys do about the Michael Myers character. I didn't necessarily back then.
Because he had died at the end of the second movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fangoria and everything was following the making of this movie, and they were promoting it, with the right, promotion of the masks and saying it was, Season of the Witch and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, even John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they agreed to come on as producers just as long as it didn't directly tie into the previous 2 Halloween movies.
Right.
And at this point, I think Mustafa Akkad and Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they were thinking about making kind of an anthology franchise where each movie would just be Halloween themed, but it would just focus on some of the things about Halloween, and
and I think that's a brilliant idea even today. Look at it is all cool. These years later, all these other movies that have been made, like we've talked about since the first Halloween movie when we were discussing that one, that Valentine's Day and April Fool's Day and Mother's Day and all these other Christmas and all these other themed movies, and Halloween is the one movie where you can do that anthology concept,
and they're tied and it's just amazing that they were able to get the title Halloween like nobody had ever used it before. So yeah, why not?
When Carpenter made the first film,
yeah. So why not make an anthology, a series of movies on Halloween with the name Halloween that are about different aspects of Halloween? It's a cool idea.
I know, and I think John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, of course, she's passed away now, but to this day, John Carpenter and his wife, his current wife, have been doing comic books and all kinds of things where they've continued with that sort of idea. Like, he's a great idea man. Look at all the movies they've done over the years, and any one of those movies you could do offshoots and franchises from, and there have been several sequels to various films like Escape from New York and stuff like that.
Of course, yeah.
They're talking about remaking it again,
There's a bit of a Britishness about this movie, and I think it stems from
the British writer. Yeah.
Yes, it stems from the fact that I think Carpenter had he made a trip to England. He was discussing horror and sci-fi on a BBC program, and I think it was at that point that he met a writer called Nigel Kneale. He had been the author of BBC's Quartermass TV series and films, and then he was interested in working. They were interested in working together. So Kneale agreed to write the script for Halloween 3. So, and it kind of follows. He ended up taking his name off of this movie because he wasn't happy with the rewrites that they did. But
gore and stuff, when they cut all the gore into it and everything.
Sticking the finger in the eye and the drill through the head and all that stuff. That was because the front office was like, oh, we need to have gore in this movie. We need to have horror. We need to have kills and body counts.
Well, if you look at the second movie, it was stepped up also from the first. Like, in other words, the first one they said practically no blood. And then the second movie, they said, like, wow, there's been so many imitators of Halloween, since the first movie was so successful that now there's a whole slasher genre out there, and we've got to step up our own violence in our sequel ourselves,
He kills almost the entire night staff of an entire hospital, and there's actually a scene where he drains the blood off a person and drowns a lady into like a hot bath. And
he cooks her in the hot tub.
Yeah.
Right.
and
so
Kneale said,
movie,
Yeah. So Kneale actually said once on record on an interview, said, I got drawn into writing Halloween 3 for John Carpenter. I wrote an original, large-scale screenplay with a lot of black humor in it, debunking sentimental Irishry. The front office demanded that Halloween 3 should be exactly the same as Halloween 1 and 2, so my screenplay was cut down to B-picture size and had eye gougings and electric drillings added. It bore no resemblance to what I had written.
Yeah.
So he wanted his name removed.
Yeah, you can't really find that script online, but you can find the 1982 rewritten script.
I think they should have stuck with the working title, Deadbeat Dad versus the Irish Robots.
That's a great one.
That's funny, yeah.
Or the Adventures of Deadbeat Dad versus the Irish Druid Robots.
Yes. That's great. That really says it in a nutshell. Like, in other words, those what they would say, like in a pitch meeting, like a high concept, say it in one line, like what's the high concept pitch, That's it right there.
And then when Kneale left the project, kind of disgusted about it, Tommy Lee Wallace, a frequent Carpenter contributor and writer, he wrote Amityville 2, I think, in 1982 before he made this movie.
I think he also worked on Halloween 1 as the art director.
Right, yeah. And since he had written Amityville 2, he had written Amityville 2, The Possession, so he ended up working the script that Nigel Kneale had written, and then he was given the assignment of directing the film.
Right, so technically it's like Carpenter and Tommy Lee and Nigel Kneale, but only Tommy Lee gets actual credit in the film.
Yeah, and so I wanted to ask you guys about this too, because we talked last time that I had thought that John Carpenter scored the film, and you guys are like, no. But then
Alan Howarth.
But John Carpenter's
they work together.
Credit is before his. But is that
because they wanted to get John Carpenter's name all over this thing so that they could get money? Like, it's all about the money.
So is his score, is his credit only about the music that they took from previous Halloween movies, or did he do other stuff too on here?
I think,
maybe.
yes, it's only from the previous Halloween movies. Like, he
Okay.
technically, I don't believe he worked on any actual recording sessions with Alan
Okay.
Howarth, but I could be wrong. I could.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, they do bring a couple of cues from the original Halloween.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, like there's when they're driving, I think there's that like ominous do.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
like the do, it's like very distinctive. The theme of the original Halloween, and
Yeah.
they do show the original Halloween on a TV screen, just like
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
original
yeah.
Halloween.
A
how
few
they have
times.
Sing,
Yeah,
and they have
it's
Forbidden
That's
Planet.
crazy.
it's
on,
not subtle at all.
No, not at
But
all.
it's a horror-thon, just like
Yeah.
in the original movie. There's a horror-thon on TV.
Yeah, that's cool.
And
And
strangely
they
enough,
have to have the commercial. There's an excuse because there's a commercial, the Silver Shamrock.
yeah. And strangely enough, the movie didn't really premiere in Halloween. It premiered on like October 22nd, I think, of 1982.
So you can get a whole week of time out the theater before the actual date of Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes. And it made like $14 million on like
Wow.
a $2.5 million budget.
Yeah, great profit.
Yeah, even though critically it was totally panned, but and the audiences didn't like it. But anyway, you guys want to get started and cue
Yeah,
it up
yeah.
to the beginning?
So I've got it paused right at
There you
in
go.
outer space on the Universal before the Universal logo starts.
Yeah, I've got
Same here.
Okay.
Okay, we're
All
ready.
right. Who wants to count down?
I can do it this
All
time.
right.
Okay.
All right, so put your masks on, kids, and
Yeah, actually, it's so funny because the COVID masks, and this is like a
Oh, yeah.
timely movie now for the generation that
Right.
for the times
Oh
we're
God.
absolutely. So gather up, kids, put on your masks, and let's count down to 3, 2, 1, and play.
Do 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 do.
Oh boy, that drives me crazy.
No, there's one point in the movie that we'll see later where he says, "Every time I turn on the TV, this stupid song is playing," or something like that, and like he's speaking for the audience, man.
Yes. Well, what's funny too is that Ryan, you have a child, you have a son,
Yeah.
and how does that strike you that this is like programmed towards kids? Like this is.
Yeah.
This is like kid violence,
Oh, and actually I was surprised because I used to like this when I was a teenager. I'd watched this movie a few times and I was surprised to see, like, wow, they killed that kid and then they
and the family
made the parents watch and then killed the parents right after. It's like, wow, I'm surprised that the MPAA let this get an R rating. But then at the same time, it's like they set this kid up to be a jerk first. And I think how
just desserts.
Yeah, and the MPAA they have no like real rules. It's just however they feel at the time. And I think if they set this kid up as a jerk, then suddenly it's not as violent anymore when he dies.
Yeah, it's a trope. Like, in other words, the same with the kids in the first movie where they're drinking beer, smoking pot, having sex, so you can kill them.
Yeah. And so this kid flips his parents off and rides off into the street when they just told him not to. So it's like, yeah, okay.
He deserves
flips
it.
him off. Yeah. So we just saw the credit for Tom Burman makeup. He worked, of course, Cat People, Body Double, The Goonies, Teen Wolf. He's done a lot of good stuff.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, and his company, he used to have this company called Burman's, which was the supplier for latex and clay and plaster and all that kind of stuff in L.A. for like a whole generation. He and his wife, they had that business, and then they got divorced, and she took the business, and then unfortunately she has passed away recently, but Burman's was a industry standard for generation.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's interesting that they spend so much time zooming in on the scan lines on the television. It's like so many people nowadays wouldn't even understand what they're looking at.
Right, the
TVs
raster bars.
Yeah,
the raster
TVs
bars.
are so higher, so much higher definition now that it's like this looks like a 8-bit
crude by
Yeah.
our standards. What's funny though is that the flipping raster bar lines used to be something that you could set the shutter on a camera, on a 35 millimeter camera, so that you could avoid seeing the flipping lines if you did it right.
Oh,
I guess
that's right,
they
yeah.
wanted to see them. I guess they didn't care. They intended.
They want to make sure everybody knows that's a TV screen.
Right.
Okay, so we're opening in Northern California, where you are,
Yes.
Ed, in
Yes.
October.
In fact, they were saying about how the real location is the same real location where they shot The Fog, and some of the studio locations were the same locations that they shot, Escape from Precinct 13 and Escape from New York and Assault on Precinct 13 and stuff. So it's like Carpenter uses, even though it's not him directing us up as a producer and stuff, they're using a lot of the same things that they use, for the other films.
So we got a man running away from a car 8 days before Halloween. And this man is going to be called Grimbridge, I think. And we will find out that he is a toy store owner.
It's interesting. He found a really good place to hide, and he doesn't use any of the places to hide there.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have slid under any of those cars. Or he could have crawled under that little mobile home or ATCO unit office there that he's banging on the door of.
He's too old to climb under cars.
Yes.
It's a thriller. It's meant to have a chase.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually,
action.
it's so funny.
He's an action hero toy store owner.
Yes. It's so funny. Like, as you watch this whole movie, now that you guys have watched it all before, we watched it now, it's what they call shoe leather, like chasing or creeping around in dark corridors and stuff. You find ways to burn up the screen time, because there's really not much happening,
It's true. Yeah, they have to get this to 90 minutes, and it cuts it close.
So originally the script started a few weeks before Halloween, and Grimbridge would show up already very deranged, very disturbed. He could only repeat the word Sam Haines. And then the doctors would think his name was Sam Haines, so they wouldn't know who his family was supposed to be. And then
Did you get that from a script you found online?
Yeah, it was from analysis of the original script, Nigel Kneale's script. Yeah, but unfortunately, it's kind of a holy grail to find that script.
But then in this final version, the bad guy pronounces it Samhain.
Yeah. I was going to say something about that. I think that might be an Irish pronunciation.
Yeah.
This is the worst.
Gaelic.
This is the worst death in the franchise.
Yeah, that would have just for any normal person, that would have just made him go, "Ow, geez, that hurts." They wouldn't just instantly die, and especially this. Actually, I have a question for you guys about these. I mean, this is a spoiler for any. I'm assuming everyone's seen this already. Definitely. That guy's a robot, but do they have human skin like a Terminator?
I don't think so.
You never find out from this movie.
No, you don't.
But
I think it's rubber.
It's supposed to be that I think that that they're magically imbued. You know what I mean? Like the Stonehenge concept. Yeah. Supposedly, there's like a little chip of rock of Stonehenge in every chip that goes into each mask, right?
Yeah.
And so the concept of these men, these robot men, must be that they've got, like the Tin Woodsman, like he's got a chip of rock of the Stonehenge in his heart or something.
They're like
I didn't get that from this. I thought they were because of all the automatons and animatronics that we see in the factory. I thought they were simply just completely mechanical.
So I thought that too until there was the Ellie one, right? The Ellie Grimbridge one,
right?
Because you assume that now she's dead. It's like, well, why? Why do we think she's dead?
Because there's a duplicate,
right? But they just copied her, so that
right. But in other movies that we've seen, I agree with you. There's no for real way of knowing unless Jose's got a copy of the script where it says. But my point is that we only can go by what we see in the film, and it appears to me that like from other movies tropes, like say for instance, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I'm sure you guys in your research have discovered that one of the things about this movie is that it was paying homage to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, when they take over your body, they kill you.
Did you guys notice there? They just name checked the movie in the commercial.
Yeah, so they were talking about Stonehenge.
It's the Halloween 3. That's right, 3 Halloween masks.
Right.
Yes,
3 masks from this.
Yeah.
Also, the Stonehenge thing on the news saying Stonehenge has been vandalized, or robbery at Stonehenge, giant rock was stolen.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll come back. So this is Jones, the gas station attendant, and this is where the script opens up, really.
Yeah, and I was, Nina was saying, I'm blind, everybody. I'm a blind podcaster. This is a ethnically diverse cast, right? This is a black man.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the only one, but yes.
No, I think there's 3 in
really?
The film. Yeah, there's a nurse. There's a.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
An orderly, a nurse,
right?
So and John Carpenter is usually pretty good, and or rather, Carpenter films usually have a fairly diverse cast.
Yep. So one title that was kind of completely unnecessary is just when they fade out to black and then it shows up 1 hour later and it cuts to this gas station. It's like, you could have just faded to black and opened up here. We would have known it was sometime later.
Time passed.
Yes. But did you guys get a vibe from the opening credits music? A little bit like the Terminator soundtrack by Brad Fiedel. I got a little bit of that because it was like that boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
And speaking of which, kind of a heartbeat, sort of.
Yeah. And the Terminator was still a few years to come. So this is the original movie with the killer robots.
And Terminator, I mean, Carpenter with his soundtracks, is much, imitated in lots of other people's films and stuff.
I love that the first view of our hero in this movie, he's wearing a jacket over his head like the Great Cornholio. Coming in from the rain. Yeah. Our hero.
Yeah, Tom Atkins with his porn stash.
Yep. Yeah. He was in the Ninth Configuration. He played Sergeant Krebs.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. I like him. He's been in so many other things. Night of the Creeps. He was great in Night of the Creeps. He plays like a hard-boiled detective kind of, film noirish kind of.
And apparently he married Nancy Loomis from the first movie because that's the same actress.
Oh,
exactly.
Tommy Lee Wallace's wife.
And her name, Nancy Loomis. Dr. Loomis. The Donald Pleasance character's name.
Oh wow!
But here she plays an entirely different character.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing likable about her at all. But as the movie goes along, you start to realize she's got a point. He is kind of a deadbeat.
He neglects his kids all the time. But in the brief week that takes place in this movie, I think he's justified in not being able to pay attention to his kids as much as he wanted.
But he doesn't even call in. I mean, or he barely calls in to see, he makes up dumb excuses, and I don't know.
Oh yeah, he's a total cheater too. Like, in other words, I didn't realize Nina wasn't sure, and I weren't sure really that if he was divorced or not. And apparently he's divorced.
He calls her his ex-wife.
At first that he wasn't. I wasn't aware that he was really divorced at first, and so I'm thinking, boy, he's smacking the nurses on the ass. He's getting kissed by the coroners. He's sleeping with the daughters of toy store owners.
He's like smacking the nurses behind.
Yeah, he's quite the gentleman, isn't he?
Yeah, that's harassment. So back in 1982, the cool thing is that genre fans like you, Ed, could score yourself a Don Post mask for just $25.
I've got one. I got one of those.
You do? Which one? The pumpkin or the skull? That's cool. Yeah.
It's not the one that was issued during their release of these particular ones, because the skull and the witch were already in the Don Post catalog line, for several years. And, they released the skull as like a glow in the dark kind of version with, I believe all 3 of them had some sort of crazy paint schemes that identified them, because the pumpkin is the only one that was particularly made for this movie to make 3 that they would put out,
I see. He just smacked his nurses behind. That wouldn't fly nowadays.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Ed, because at the time I was thinking, too, that what is he doing? Why he just decides to take a nap in his office? Why doesn't he go home?
Yeah.
Then you find out later she's the ex-wife. It's like, all right, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And he actually says to her, like, I should have married you,
Yeah.
Also, maybe he's on call. I mean, sometimes doctors have to sleep in the hospital and stuff. Yeah.
I think he was at his house with the kids when he brings them some presents of the masks, and the wife shows him up by, we already got the silver shamrock ones.
Yeah.
And
the kids are like, these are garbage, Dad.
Yeah.
So does your sunken skull glow in the dark? Was it a glow in the dark mask?
Like I was saying, mine is from the versions when they were just standard skull paint jobs. You know what I mean?
I see. Okay.
So it's same exact mask, but different version of it. It's not the low version.
Did you also have like the Planet of the Apes Don Post masks and stuff?
I did. I mean, many of those, the earlier versions of the cheap, there were two versions of Don Post, masks. They used to have what they call the calendar masks, which were real thick, super collectible. They were like $50 instead of $25. Mm-hmm. And it was hard to afford those when you were young, but the thinner versions would rot, so the like it's rare to still have, any of the old thin standard Halloween masks, unless you did something like my shape, my Captain Kirk, one from the original Halloween. I foam filled it, and stuff. So mask collectors have to do stuff like that, or at the very least, keep it on a mask stand.
They will become misshapen and dried out, right? Right,
and rot and crumble into dust if you're not keeping it like in a dark environment, sealed in a plastic bag.
We just got our first death here.
Yeah,
pretty gruesome.
So they pulled the bridge of his nose out from his eye socket.
Yeah, they say later that they like crushed his skull. He like breaks his skull apart inside his head or something. Oh man, a way to go.
Yeah. And then why does he bother wiping his gloves off on the curtain? He
has to kill enough time to get caught.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
It makes it more menacing when he does that. He's like, he doesn't
and the
care.
Black gloves too. It's like, why do robots need black gloves to crush your head?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not like they have fingerprints.
It's so that they all can look the same. Like when there's more robots later, they're all wearing black gloves. It's like the uniform of the robot.
Yeah, the 3-piece gray suit and the black gloves.
Black gloves, right? Just like Yul Brynner in Westworld with his black outfit.
Funny bit of
I haven't
trivia.
Seen that movie.
Yeah,
no?
Funny. You got to watch that movie. It's pretty good.
Trivia.
Okay, so a little bit of trivia is that the Santa Mira,
the town,
the town. It of course it's fictional, but it's also the same town from
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you very much. It's the same name. So it shows up in a few other places. Let's see. It shows up also in.
Town. It's from the book and also the movie. It's a fictional town, but they use it, in this movie as well.
Right, and it also shows up.
What's the name of it again?
Santa Mira.
Santa Mira. Okay.
Yeah, it shows up in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Halloween 3, and a novel from 1983 called Phantoms.
And also, the location, the real location is the same location also where they shot Invasion of the Body Snatchers, apparently.
I never noticed that guy's fire hat has a big F on it that's floppy, like it's going to fall right off.
Oh, yes.
It's like, wait, how are people going to know this guy's a fireman? Oh, just stick an F on there.
Fireman.
Yeah, and it does seem like that thing's about to fall off. That's not a very good prop, and he keeps nodding his head. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Low budget. Yeah.
So the first time he's talking to his wife on the phone saying that, a guy just got murdered. The cops and the fire department, a car blew up in the parking lot. And she's like, you're not here for your kids. And he's like, well, the two guys died. 2
men were killed here tonight.
They don't even know what you look like anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, well, 2 men were killed here tonight.
Yeah.
And this is
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the original MacGuffin, the mask that the guy apparently kept on his hands throughout the entire
Clutched
examination.
into his hand.
Yeah, I guess because he wanted to bring it to the police. I don't know.
Evidence.
Yeah.
Something. Got to have a MacGuffin.
So was that a thing was that a thing for older masks to have like a little badge or something? Because usually it's stamped on the rubber itself, right? Yeah.
Well, there is a rubber stamp on most, in the mold and everything most of the time, but there is a header card on like most. Even to this day, I still have some original, Don Post masks that I never remove the card because, for resale, it makes them super valuable if they're in mint condition with the original packaging stuff on it and stuff.
Gotcha.
But, I was going to say about the flaming effect, that guy, Dick Warlock, the stuntman who plays the android throughout the film, he, of course he dies, but he comes back. He's in several androids throughout the film. And it's interesting because, he's a stuntman who can do those full body burns like that, and so of course they wrote that in, but think about it logically. Why would you destroy a multi-million-dollar piece of technical robot equipment like that? He just completed his mission. The only thing that would have happened would have been maybe they'd get his car's description or his license plate. He could drive down the road, abandon the car, or blow it up and burn it if he wants. But what is it registered to the Silver Shamrock Company? Yeah. I mean, it's the wreckage would still. There's an engine block with a number. I mean, they still. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well,
like, where's the logic?
Well, throughout the entire movie, the coroner that is
trying to figure out,
and then she starts by saying it's all working towards that big reveal at the end, right? She says, "Oh, you know what? They gave us the wrong stuff to autopsy. They gave us like bits of burnt car seat,
car parts,
and parts and stuff." And then she's like. And then there's another part where she's calling someone saying, hey, this doesn't seem like a car part. What the heck is this? It's just working towards that realization that they're androids. Yeah, the robots.
Right. Which is kind of funny because, you're thinking about making a movie, Halloween 3. John Carpenter likes sci-fi. He likes the Quartermass stories, the Quartermass films. He meets that gentleman who wrote those stories. He decides he wants to do more of a science fiction-y kind of Halloween, right? So he's mixing, magic, druids, Stonehenge, and sci-fi. It's almost like Westworld meets horror or something.
Yes, Nigel. Kneale originally just had it didn't have any of that Stonehenge little stuff in the chip. It was just like a chip and a fusion cell, a fuel cell that would actually shoot lasers and stuff. So all that stuff about, which I never really understood until I actually understood more about how the movie ended up being rewritten, is so why do they go to the trouble of showing the lasers coming out and the chip and all that stuff? And then when the kids put on the mask, instead of the lasers killing them or something, they just turn into crickets and snip.
Hey, at this point in the commentary, I have to cut in here because my internet had dropped out. So I have to apologize because we had a good minute of silence here, and I'm sure that Jose and Ed had a lot of really awesome things to say, but because my internet had dropped out, but the movie was still going and we're still on the same running time. And then when the internet finally kicked back on, Skype just threw them right back into the call, and they just kept on going nothing had happened. And so I had to explain to them, hey, I just lost you for 2 minutes. And so you're going to hear a little bit of that. And I have to apologize, and now I have to keep on talking until we get back to that point, which is coming up right now.
This is in this movie.
Right?
She's the operator
on the screen in these scenes, right? The Shape and her both are on the screen.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. That too.
I have to apologize to everybody because my internet went out for the last 2 minutes, so that means the recording's going to have nothing for 2 minutes except for me going, "Hello, is everybody there?"
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Do you want us to stop and rewind this?
Rewind?
No, because that's kind of a pain for anybody that's following along. I think we could just continue on.
Okay.
But now, we've got him in the bar, right?
Yeah.
So this daughter of a novelty store owner is, pretty loose, floozy to pick up this doctor.
Yeah.
And go to a motel with him. And it's so funny because I was listening, I'm blind and I'm listening to the dialogue very closely as, they're saying things. And I thought to myself, like, he tells them they're going to get a couple of rooms, meaning like he's not taking it for granted. He's going to say, each one of us will get a room, but how are they going to, then he goes and says they're a married couple. Like they're undercover as a married couple. So how are they going to play this? Then in the room, he says, should I get another room, or I can sleep in the car,
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, well, where would you want to sleep? Her grief is not very convincing. I have to say.
Her father's dead.
Well, and she just pulled a blanket back and saw his face was all mangled up and crushed.
Yeah, he was killed by skull crushing.
Yeah. And then they pulled the blanket back so she could identify him. It's like, ugh.
Yeah. Oh man.
Okay, so right now the scene is where they're at her father's toy store. They're looking at the Halloween masks on display, and she's starting to unravel the mystery, saying that here, my dad used to keep all these records, and this is what he was doing a few days ago. And last entry is that he went to pick up, and he never made it. And then she thinks that it has something to do with the factory. So this is where they're going to start following the clues.
Yeah.
Should we try to, at the end of this, should we try to go back to around 20-minute mark and try to talk a little bit about what we were doing, talking about during the part that we missed?
I can't remember what we were talking about.
Okay, well, never mind that. We'll fill it in with something.
I'm sure we got tons of stuff.
Yeah. And here's another part of him on the phone with his ex-wife. This is going to be a recurring motif.
Right. Now, the six-pack, Nina mentioned that too. It's like, here he's going to go driving and drinking because he bought a six-pack, and, he's got this woman with him, and she's going to drink 3, and he's going to drink 3, or he's going to drink 4, and she's going to drink 2. Or,
it's weird,
because later, they're gone. The six-pack is gone, and he has to go back out and get a bourbon or some booze, hardcore booze.
I've got the closed caption subtitles on, and while he was talking to his wife on the phone, it said talking about boring stuff.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. Whoever was closed captioning this was like, nobody cares about this.
They're just driving away in their 1976 BMW 2002.
Right.
Oh.
Car trivia. Of course, you thought I forgot about that? No.
No.
But yeah, that comes back at the end when he's trying to warn people about what's going on with the masks, and he's trying to call his wife, and then he says, "No, I'm not drunk," because kind of implies, visual cue, right?
Yeah,
it's a visual cue. Because he's got a six-pack driving to
and it's
Santa
like, I guess, pretty common or something that doctors would drive around drinking.
Smoking and drinking.
Being on call, when they're drinking.
Yeah. He meets the daughter of Grimbridge at a bar after work, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this is, like you said.
Guy, like dating and having sex with a patient's daughter,
He's divorced. He can do whatever he wants.
Well, and we never even see his house in this whole movie. Like, is he homeless?
He lives out of that couch in the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
He showers at the different women's houses.
Yeah.
So this guy standing here, obviously he's one of the androids, but it just makes him look a little bit like the Shape.
He is.
Yeah. He probably is. If it's Dick Warlock.
Dick Warlock, the actor who played the Shape in the second movie,
So very Invasion of the Body Snatchers vibe. When they come into the town, and every single person just follows their car with their eyes, just scans them as they go by.
And that seems a little weird because I can't imagine that every single person in this town would be in on this,
Yeah, but now see, here's my question. Okay. Spoiler alert, here's my question. Are they all androids?
Right. That was in my mind as well.
I never thought about it that way.
It's a factory town, right? They're working at the factory. What one would, I wondered that, like later on in the film when, the head man,
Cochran.
Dan O'Hurley,
Yeah.
Dan O'Hurley, the actor. Actually, by the way, just trivial note, I met him in person on the set of RoboCop. I went to Texas to be on set
that's
of
wonderful.
RoboCop, and I got to meet him. He played the head boss of the company that made RoboCop. Anyway, he seems to be the only human, in the factory. Like later on when they're all surrounded by, when he's throwing the chips all over the place and, there's all these sparks and stuff and the robots and stuff seem to be going haywire.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with that? It's like a very inexpensive, payroll, I guess, but also very expensive to build all these robots.
But there's no way that this innkeeper's not a robot.
Yeah, well, he says that at one point, not him, but the drunk guy that he's going to meet, John Shellis, that's his name. The drunk guy that he meets when he's out getting booze says, Cochran, he's responsible for like the death of this city, and he talks about the factory.
Yeah,
and
he's a very vocal.
Yes, but he says he brought everybody to the factory from out of town. So yes, I think they're all robots.
Well, I thought that I took that to mean that he only would bring in Irish people.
I did hear in the behind the scenes that they wanted to try and hire all redheads.
Oh, okay. That would make it more
weird?
Village of the Damned too. Yeah,
That would have been weird.
I imagine that would be really tough casting.
Yeah. Well, it would have cost more to make wigs or have hair dye or whatever.
Yeah.
Would have been weird.
And here's Mr. Cochran.
Stepchild.
Yeah.
That motel still exists, and there's still a gas station next to it.
Huh.
It's in California. It's most of this was shot in a place called Loleta, California, a small coastal town.
Right, where they shot The Fog also.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
they shot The Fog. They shot other Carpenter stuff has been shot in
I love
same
when
location.
that bicycle flies off the RV.
And Tom Atkins was in The Fog as well, right?
Right. Yeah, Carpenter had kind of an ensemble cast of people that he would use in all kinds of films,
This family is so colorful that it's just they're just such a stereotypical surreal looking family.
Don't you find them very overacting?
They're totally an American stereotype.
Right, but not very believable. I mean, I've seen American stereotypes like this before, where they didn't overact so bad, and they, it came off a little bit more believable, more realistic.
Complete overacting. The same with the lady that just almost ran over John Shellis here, was going to get zapped in the face. She's also super overacting.
Yeah, I mean, she's supposed to be another store owner, who's showing up to pick up an order, or her order wasn't, processed properly or something,
Yeah.
So,
which is kind of weird. Why would you go to the factory? Drive. What's wrong with the phone? What's wrong with, that comes from the original script. So the original script would start a few weeks before Halloween, and there would be a big buyer's bash of people coming to the factory. Convention or something.
Yeah, before Halloween, a few weeks before, because it doesn't make any sense that toy store owners would spend Halloween at this place at the factory, because that would be the biggest
week. The biggest sales week of their careers,
But then they just thought that narrowing the time frame of the beginning of the story would make it more streamlined. But that's why these people coming here
have any experience in retail or Halloween stores or anything, it wouldn't make much sense, because like the guy who's the biggest sales king, of the whole United States, I think they quoted like 70,000 masks he sold, and therefore he's there to win a prize and everything, him and his family. And it's like he would be in his store, or at least he would have his store fully staffed.
Absolutely. So we just had there's no chemistry between Tom Atkins and the girl.
No.
Her father just died like 2 days ago.
It reminded me of Grandpa Simpson watching McBain and going, the romantic subplot seemed tacked on.
And then he just there's this awkward conversation about where are you going to sleep? I can sleep in the car. Where do you want to sleep? And he comes over and he just kisses her, and it's like, oh my God. And you know what? This was the first stuff that they shot together, was the lovemaking scene.
How awkward. Awkward.
And Tom Atkins talked and said we had barely met like the day before, and we go on set and we have to do that. It was kind of awkward.
He has to be in a lingerie outfit and everything. Yeah, that was another funny thing about the luggage. They arrive at this place. They say they're a married couple, and the man says, "You like to pack light, huh?" Or something like that. And she's got this little overnight thing.
That's true. Yeah, she's got like this nightgown, like she was planning it the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, but she says something like, we had a lot of practice on the road. So cameras everywhere in this city.
The 80s, what a change since the 80s.
So there's a curfew at 6. This adds to the vibe. And in response to the point that you brought up before, that is this place all robots and stuff? Why are they like looking at the car? And is everybody in on this plot?
It's a village for the damned.
They can't be all robots because they wouldn't even bother with a curfew because they would just all go to bed at night anyway.
Well, some of them I think are like the gas station guy.
Well, I'm not finished, guys. So my point is that I don't think they thought through enough to that point. I just thought they were just doing that for the vibe, for the atmosphere of making it seem like there's a mystery here and everybody's in on it.
Creepy.
Because the robots are weird. I mean, they barely speak, and they
all wear 3-piece suits.
Yeah, right. And so, but then you got like the hotel manager guy who doesn't really seem like he's a robot. And like the front desk staff of the toy company don't really seem like they're robots.
Yeah, those are just townies, I think.
In logistics-wise, geography-wise, where do you think the hospital is in comparison to the factory and the hotel and the gas station? Like, in other words, the man ran from the factory to the gas station. The gas station guy drove him to the hospital. Yeah. They drive long enough to drink a 6-pack and get to the motel. Like geographically, where is all this?
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. They never say how far Santa Mira is. But,
and it's funny because I was just thinking that when in the opening scene when he's running to the gas station, I'm like, wait, did he run the whole way from the toy factory?
He must have.
Yeah. Right, because like her father, because they have his car.
His car, yeah.
It's in the garage. One interesting thing is like they don't do very much to hide what's going on. It's like they don't give a rip about the aftermath of after Halloween,
anything, like the immolation in the hospital parking lot.
After Halloween, law enforcement would come down on their factory. I mean, everybody knows where their factory is.
I guess they don't care. Like they're intending to wipe out like over 1 million people.
It's
the villain dies, so at that point,
he blows himself up with the factory at the end.
But he didn't expect that to happen, did he?
Right. I think he intended. Who knows? It's like when he says 3,000 years ago, the hills ran red with blood.
Yeah, I don't think it would have
happened again.
I don't think he would have stayed at his factory and wait until the police went to talk to him about it.
Yeah, I suppose.
I think he would have expected all the people to be dead. All the police too, their kids. I don't know what.
It's only just 3 Halloween. You don't have every single kid in America wearing one of 3 Halloween costumes.
Right. So there's Dick Warlock ripping off this guy's head off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good effect.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the body keeps on squirting while it falls down.
That's pretty cool. Yep,
was that a human or a robot that got its head ripped off?
It was a human.
Yeah.
It was the drunk guy.
Ah.
Yeah. The guy who said, screw Cochran, he destroyed this city.
But they don't show it with blood and guts and stuff, do they?
They just show the red squirting in between the 2 robots. Yes. The blood coming out of the neck. Mm-hmm. Yep. And... so here's the scene where the other lady is talking to Ellie and telling her about the screw up, and I tried ordering this, and it's a big headache, and now I have to come here, and it's a big headache too. You can't win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she comes all the way from her store in San Francisco, which like Elmira or whatever might be maybe by Sacramento, Fresno, someplace like that, from
the
San
other
Francisco.
family comes from San Diego.
In other words, the middle of California from one end to the other, like from LA, from San Francisco. So like a 3-4 hour drive from either of those two major cities to this out in the boonies, Elmira, wherever factory. Why would they do that?
Well,
again,
and it's not that long of a drive. She doesn't need to stay in a hotel. She could just go talk to them and then drive back home.
She couldn't take care of this by just telephone and then showing up at the front desk and saying, hey, either I'm stopping payment on my check or you're going to fill up my car with masks. I'm heading back to my store in San Francisco because I got a big holiday weekend this weekend.
Blame Tommy Lee Wallace. He's the one who rewrote it. These people were supposed to be doing the buyer's blitz weeks before Halloween. They were just there for the making
tour.
Orders, the tour and all that stuff, and be like, hey, this is the new product you guys are going to buy, and we'll give you a bulk discount and all that stuff. I
really would have thought that would have been an important aspect of the script, to make some sort of fiestable sort of thing when those people go on their tour and stuff. It's pretty lackluster.
But then at the same time, it wouldn't. But then it wouldn't culminate with Halloween.
No, it would not.
Which
would have been weeks before.
Yeah. Which
so they could buy it and get it and sell it, and then possibly after Halloween they could come back and do another blitz. Like, hey, this guy sold more masks than everybody else. Yay! Yeah. Let's do some orders for next year. And then there's a part where they even say they wouldn't even take my orders for next year. What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah.
Like they know that there ain't going to be no Halloween next year.
I feel bad for that coroner lady. She spends so much time trying to help this guy just because she seems like she kind of likes him. So she spends so much time of her own free time trying to help him, and all she gets for it is a robot drills her head.
Right.
Well, she's supposed to be working on an autopsy for the hospital on the guy who died, so she's also doing her job. She's not just doing that as a favor.
A box full of plastic and metal.
Yeah.
So there's not much to autopsy there. You're going to be done with that in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And here's the awkward lovemaking scene with the nightie and all that. It's like, oh, God.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's not.
So your
dad just died 2 days ago.
That's not right.
This was the first scene from the shooting?
Yeah, that they shot together. This was one of the first scenes.
First day. Day one. Yeah. Scene 1, day 1.
Wow.
Not the best. Yeah.
Make sure you got some Banaka or some reference,
So, since this is the best time to bring it up, I mean, there was a point in time when Clive Barker and Carpenter were briefly in talks to come up with something called Halloween. Yes, which would have been, Pinhead
meets Michael Myers.
Exactly. And so that was weird. And one time Rob came up with some research, and he made an article called Halloween, When Hell Almost Came to Haddonfield. And so it was supposed to be, it was pitched by Dave Parker, a guy who worked on The Dead Hate the Living and Tales of Halloween. And he pitched unsuccessfully Freddy vs. Jason to a guy named Ross Hammer at Sean Cunningham's company around 94 or early 95. And after that didn't go very well, he started to think about what other franchises were at other studios. And then, of course, Dimension at the time had Halloween and the Hellraiser franchise. So he put together a trailer using footage from the Halloween movies and the Hellraiser movies 1 through 4. He did some narration for the trailer and called it Halloween. And he says, I know it was not the most groundbreaking idea and probably will induce many groans, but it stayed true to the best elements of Halloween and returned Hellraiser back to the mythology Clive Barker and Peter Atkins established. So that came out.
What does he mean by that exactly?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Probably the Leviathan and stuff. It
was going to explain certain things about Michael Myers and why he was what he was, and what led, and that would lead to opening the doors for Pinhead to come in. And the thing was, how come Michael Myers could never die? And then the article went on to continue saying, it's obviously taking some liberties, and I'm not saying this is the greatest idea ever or anything like that. I was just trying to come up with a plausible way to get these two guys together to fight. So why does he all of a sudden go out and kill his sister in Halloween? He's trick-or-treating in a flashback, and he goes up to this one house, and at this time, I was really trying to tie it into everything that was put into the Halloween films. So he goes into the house and sees the guy with the black boots who gives him the box. He opens it, and the Lord of the Dead, Sam Hain, escapes from hell and takes over Michael's body because he doesn't want to be in hell. Now Sam Hain is who the Shape is, and that's why he can't be killed. So the story takes place when people try to destroy the Myers house, and they find the box hidden between the walls. Of course, they open it, and Pinhead shows up, and it's Halloween, and it's the Myers house. So Michael shows up because there are people there, and Pinhead recognizes that Michael is Sam Hain because he can feel it, which begins the whole battle in the real world. And, of course, the third act takes them all to hell. So that's what it was going to be like. And then, there was some talk, and Clive Barker was tapped for it, and he was going to write it, and then Carpenter was going to direct it. But then, according to the Revelations website, let's see what they say here.
Let me say something real quick about the effect that we just saw on the screen. Apparently, I'm blind, but Nina was telling me that it's the part where the woman is in her hotel room and she's fiddling around with the hairpin on the chip, and it fries her face, and she ends up kind of looking like her mouth like Chatterer.
Yeah. And right before that, the commercial came on the radio, and he goes, "Man, does this commercial ever stop?" And it's like, yeah, that's what we've been saying through this whole movie.
The actual actress was supposed to put the mask on when the misfire happened, but she refused to do that, so they ended up using a stunt double for that scene.
But it was like lasers were shooting her in the face and stuff, and she ends up getting her lips all pulled back and stuff.
She didn't put the mask on, though. She was just playing with the chip.
The chip. She was using a hairpin, and it shocked her and zapped her. And, lasers.
Originally, she was supposed to put the mask on, and then the actress didn't want to do that, so they used a stunt for the scene where she gets zapped.
So they used like an optical effect, like a blue laser beam light or something.
And this is just a complete giveaway that those doctors are robots, because just the way they move and they don't say a single word, it's just so creepy.
It's true.
Yeah.
Putting on a white jacket does not make you a doctor.
Right. Yeah, like in the main laboratory scenes, where they're futzing around with the Stonehenge and all that. Like it's, a bunch of robot men, with lab coats on,
So just to complete the Halloween stuff, so Revelations had some more information on that, and it says Clive confirmed the idea, but rights issues got in the way, and there was an online poll that said no thanks to Halloween also seems to have played a part. And then Clive said, I was invited to write the movie, but the people who owned the Halloween movie rights didn't want to do it. John Carpenter was going to direct it. I thought it would have been a pretty cool idea. He said that to Mark Schaefer in Penny Blood issue 2 in 2005. And then Doug Bradley also had something to say about that. He said to Kevin Garcia in the Brownsville Herald on October 2003, he said, at this point in time, Dimension Films are planning a Hellraiser Halloween crossover. They're hoping to have it out by Halloween next year. That would be pretty fast, but that's their plan. So, that never happened.
Good thing it never happened in a way because, when you start crossing over the franchises like that, it's back in the day of, like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein and Frankenstein meets the Wolfman and, all that kind of stuff. And, that was kind of the death knell of the classic horror films of Universal.
I'm sure if they had moved forward with this and Clive had written the script, I'm sure he wouldn't have gone with the whole Sam Hain as a guy in hell that escapes and then Pinhead is coming out to get him back. He would have probably come up with something completely different from that.
I think that if Carpenter was going to direct and Clive really was going to write or be involved, if just those two men had been involved, then yes, who knows what would have been. It would have been better than nothing, it would have been better than it would have been something, and so it's sad that they didn't do anything, them two, but I'm glad that nobody else, screwed up the franchise.
Right. And it's like Freddy versus Jason too. I mean, that kind of killed both of those franchises.
Exactly. It was at the tail end of both of them.
Yeah.
Then it would take, after this movie, it would take 6 years before another Halloween movie would be made, just because it was such a dismal failure at the box office.
Oh, wow.
Actually, though, in hindsight, it didn't do too bad in the sense that it was under $3 million and it made like what, $14 million?
That's true. But I guess it just...
I guess they were expected because they made like $100 million on the first movie and it only cost like less than $1 million or something.
I think it just hurt the franchise in the sense that the audience didn't understand it, and they kind of thought the franchise was dead, so they had to just let people forget about this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in time, like now, it is considered to be its own audience has been found, and if you had not called it Halloween, a lot of people, that's the one thing most people say is that if it had just been called Season of the Witch and had come out at the movies back then, and people would look back on it fondly as its own thing,
Mm-hmm.
Sort of.
Well, there's a lot worse movies out there. You know that.
It's got a good soundtrack, but there's not much else, that's really.
I mean, almost any of the Hellraiser later sequels, this is better than most. I mean,
it was an honest attempt.
That's not saying much. I agree.
It was an honest attempt to take this in a new direction. It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I think Dan O'Hurley, though, is a beautiful, fantastic. Without him, you'd have no movie. He was the Christopher Lee, the Vincent Price of this movie.
Yeah, I don't think that the movie failed because it tried something new. I just think it failed because it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
In the end, yeah.
Because if they had made if the movie had made a little more sense, who knows? Maybe people would have, given it a little more credit, and maybe that would have come up with something else for the next Halloween, and now we'd be talking about a different kind of Halloween franchise.
A friend of mine, Robert, that got me into this movie when we used to watch it on Halloween. There's this one line from him that he loved. It was like, "It's a joke on the children," and then so he would always quote that from. He thought that was so hilarious. A joke on the children.
Yeah.
So we would say that all the time. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I'd remembered from it. But it's like you got to slog through a lot before you get to that point.
That's true. That's true.
But what about just thought-wise about concept? As far as they could have gone anywhere with this concept of like a anthology stuff, or just a different story instead of the Michael Myers story, and kind of going with science fiction, sort of with robots and stuff. What do you guys think of this, just in concept-wise?
I'm a big fan of like anthology films like Creepshow and stuff like that. So Tales from the Crypt. So I think they could have come up with all sorts of like great ideas for stories that happened in Halloween.
Well,
I mean, but what about this one?
People keep saying Trick or Treat is really good. I haven't seen it, but
I do love Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I feel like this one would make more sense if the sacrifice that the Mr. Cochran is trying to avoid would have a purpose. Like, let's say this takes place in the early 80s at like height of the Cold War. Maybe it would have been something like, oh yeah, America and Russia are about to fight, and Corcoran wants to make a sacrifice to stop the war.
Yeah,
I guess it's going into
instead
Watchmen
of just making it instead of it just being a joke on the children.
right. Having some
to
sort
kill
of
them, to kill the children.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, if it was something like
What do you think of that as a concept, as far as like violence against children? I mean, this is a taboo subject.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely okay with it.
Oh, and then here's this museum. What do you guys think about this museum scene?
It's pretty cool. I love automata and stuff like that, animatronic stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, this would be like paradise to just go in there and check this place out.
I agree. And they have a lot of the original Don Post masks on display in this scene.
I saw, I think, Ford Johnson back there, maybe.
Yeah, that's one of their biggest sellers.
He invented the sticky toilet paper. It's like, oh, God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I wanted to say something about that. Like, in other words, I think what they're saying here is that, technically what it would have been was he invented the fake vomit. He invented the fake dog poo. He invented, like when they say the rubber chainsaw, like that's like an homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I guess, But it's conceiving that he made his millions, his fortune, that he could afford this factory out in the middle of nowhere with full of robots, to just like, how could he make so much money off of fake dog poop and fake vomit?
Right, so kind of bearing the lead here. If he can create like human-looking robots, he would change the world. He wouldn't have to.
Right.
That would be a lot more important than.
That would be a lot more valuable. He'd make a lot more money. He'd be Jeff Bezos, not
It kind of seemed like he was some sort of like minor deity, like a trickster god or something, and not a human. I don't know. I mean, he talks about the old ancient times of
3,000 years ago. The hills ran red.
Yeah. He almost talks about it like he was there. So, but
3,000 years ago, he was there. Yeah,
but they didn't flesh this story out enough for us to really know. I mean,
yeah, he gave some real vague things like, "Oh, it was so hard to get this rock over here. It would be just curl your hair to know the story."
Yeah. It's like, well, tell us.
They don't know.
Yeah.
The script doesn't know. His backstory doesn't know.
Yeah.
Who knows how long it took Tommy Lee Wallace to just adapt the script? I think he probably just did it banged in like a week and is like, good to go. Let's go and make the movie.
Yeah.
Well, let Dan O'Hurley chew the scenery and he'll figure it out on set.
That's the problem, though, with rewriting scripts, right? I mean, someone has a vision, someone comes up with a story, and they write the story, and they're like, okay, I think I did it. And then someone else who has nothing to do with the original vision comes in and is like, what can I add to this? Oh, let's have this guy get his eye poked out. Let's get this chick get her brain drilled out. Yeah. And then it's just adding stuff, making a Frankenstein monster. That
and then it's like, well, now we don't have room for all this other crap that the original author put in, so let's take that out.
Right.
Well, I think they took it out to begin with. It's like those things that Joe's talking about were added because I think they got to a certain point and they were like, there's not enough gore and guts and stuff. Like, we hired an effects guy, those masks, we're going to have snakes and bugs coming out. That's one effect. Actually, think about like the three big effects peppered throughout the film. The first one is the crushing of the head by the robot, and then the immolation, that stunt, that flame stunt's a big effect at the beginning. Yeah. Then about in the middle is, the
ripping the head off.
A couple other deaths, the ripping of the head off and stuff. Yeah. And then, toward the end is like big, WWF wrestling with the tag team of androids, and crawling through ducts and, blowing up the factory at the end, and stuff. Yeah. So and the kid's head, with that's the only big, mask trick effect, and they use that on the cover of Fangoria. Did you find that one, Joe?
I did. It's, I think, number 22.
Yeah, that's a good cover. It's got the guts of the things all coming out of the kid's head. It's in a TV screen around the frame, I believe. Yeah,
it's October 1982. And you open it up, and right inside the cover, there's the Don Post Halloween 3 masks.
Full page ad.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. He said, "I think it's time for the Marines." The Marines? That's the
Tommy Lee Wallace line. Yeah, that's a rewrite.
Well, it's exactly what happens in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. He gets on the phone and he tries to call out of the town to get the FBI or the Marines or, state troopers, whoever, right, to be notified. And he's getting that Jamie Lee Curtis on the phone.
Yeah, the voice of the operator, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, really?
Yep, sure is.
She got to do two voiceovers, one for the it's curfew, 6 o'clock.
That's
Go
right.
into your house.
But yeah, that's the part where you start getting, this house, this town is more than it seems, because it's completely cut off, which kind of gives some credence to that whole thing that you were talking about, Ryan, and you had the robots, and is this guy controls this place almost like Dan Aykroyd in Nothing But Trouble, right? It's a town completely taken out of
or whatever,
out of the rest of the world. It's like you go into it and it's like you've entered Silent Hill or something.
Exactly. He controls it. That's why it's out in the middle of nowhere. Why would you have a factory out in the middle of nowhere?
Well, it's cheaper.
Well, ironically, they did shoot the interior of the factory scenes with all the molds and the pouring of the latex and all that in the real Don Post Studios factory. It's not like a giant warehouse with a big 30-foot ceiling and stuff. The real Don Post Studios is kind of a very humble place. It's not real fancy, and but it did show the real molds and the real pouring of latex. And it's funny because when he talks about the technique and the process, process. He doesn't say things correctly. He says, we heat the latex and pour it in the molds, and then we cool it and blah, blah. And it's like, no, they don't. That's not how they do it.
Well, yeah, and it's like he talks about the tour of the mask factory like that's the the big crescendo of the whole thing, and then he's like, yeah, we do this and this and this, and that's about it.
Yep. See ya. Bye-bye.
Except for final processing, which is the mystery.
Yeah.
They do mention that. They do build it up. But Ryan, on the Fangoria article, it did say here that you talked about being a minor trickster god. And it says here, written by British screenwriter Nigel Kneale, author of the Quartermass series, Halloween 3 is a story of a man called Cochrane, the president of the Silver Shamrock Toy Company, who is really an incarnation of a 2,000-year-old demon, Cochrane.
Oh, okay.
Played by Dan
That's where he is.
O'Herlihy. Yeah.
He was there 3,000 years ago or whatever.
Okay, let me continue. Played by Dan O'Herlihy, is upset by the commercialization of Halloween and seeks, with the aid of a purloined hunk of Stonehenge and his line of mass-produced Halloween masks, to bring the holiday back to its ghoulish origins. Huh. So you were right. You were onto something there, Ryan.
Where did you catch that from? That's great.
Fangoria number 22.
No, I mean, Ryan, he just got that out of the ether,
Well, he did say that when he's talking about the hills ran red with blood, right? That it seems like he was there. And then, apparently, originally he was meant to be
a deity of
a demon.
And that and the fact that he didn't seem to give a rip about the consequences of what he was doing made me think that
like he was going to relish in the blood letting and the gore and
it's like he's not a businessman. I mean,
he's not a real person. Yeah, he got his fortune from fake vomit and dog poop, but that might have been added by Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
Because the Quartermass guy, one of the Quartermass films was like that. It was about ancient bug creatures that were sort of like our, race memory of Satan, as these bug things, that wiped out mankind and, had all these weird, I don't know if you've seen those Quartermass films.
I think I've seen one of those, like maybe the first
5
one.
million years to Earth or something like that. They're digging in London for the underground, and they discover like a spaceship or some weird underground thing that has all these bugs that are like, they look like grasshoppers or something. They're about 3 feet tall.
I need to get back on that. Yeah,
it's weird. But anyway, so where are we now?
He's sneaking into the factory. Because Ellie was gone, so
they separated him.
Yeah, which is sad because we're never going to see her again, right?
But what's weird is it's like she's so young for him. Like he's they didn't seem to be like they were going to be a couple anyway.
Kind of typical 80s action movie,
right?
Type.
A 50-year-old with an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
But now, he did the ducks. He crawled around in the ducks like in Alien. Like it's a trope. It's become a trope. How do you escape? Climb through the ducks.
Yeah, but you kind of wonder could those really support his weight?
No,
or his size.
I mean, a 250-pound guy.
Yeah,
he doesn't seem like a 150-pound 18-year-old or nothing. Oh, this old lady knitting automaton now. This is weird. What, they didn't make them very well back in the 18th century or whatever, that, you just barely jostle them and their head falls off,
Yeah.
Well, so Cochrane says that he was looking for replacement parts to fix it. So he does say that it was kind of busted and he finished the job. Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny. I was just going through the Fangoria magazine, and I just come across a full page ad after the article. Yeah, say be a Dawn Post gorilla. Yeah,
it's for a bodysuit, to buy a gorilla suit.
Yeah, I think so. Hilarious stuff. When you go through these old magazines, it's just great.
This is interesting here how he figures out if you just punch their stomach, you can like rip their guts out.
Yeah, I mean, for robots, they're really weak. I mean, a human being is tougher than that. You cannot rip out my intestines by punching me in the stomach. I'm sorry, no matter how strong you are.
I mean, and the guy's wearing a suit, and did he punch through the suit also?
Yeah, he must have, but that's a pretty weak robot, you know. They burn up real easy.
And is that it?
Rip
And
out
it
their
seems
guts.
like pumpkin guts inside of there almost.
Yes, it's orange.
Yeah, some sort of fluid. Yeah, some sort
It's
of
orange
like
juice. I found out, you know, technically
really?
the effects guys, they used orange juice.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Ash is
it's
a damn
similar.
robot.
Yeah, he just pulled
Right.
out some wires from him and stuff. Well, I mean, we don't know what's underneath the suits, right? We don't know if their body goes the whole way to be covered in
that's a
rubber,
good
or if
point.
underneath the suits that could be just more vulnerable stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It wouldn't make sense to have them vulnerable like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got your robots running around the factory. I mean, gosh, if they bump into a forklift or something, they're just going to fall apart, you know?
Well, you can just repair them.
Yeah.
But
And then go ahead.
no, I was just going to say these guys make a good job of being creepy. And then, like you said, Dick Warlock shows up in several shots. So it makes it seem like either he was repaired from this incident,
Or they have a mold of that
multiple.
creepy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the
Just
Terminator, you know, he's like
Yeah.
an Arnold.
Yeah,
People kid.
Model 101.
yeah,
Series 800 Model 101.
covered by living human tissue.
Yeah. Not a robot.
Bad breath,
Yeah.
sweat, everything.
And this is the point where the villain's
Orange
going to
juice.
explain the whole thing, Mr. Bond. Here's my plan.
Yes. My evil plan. Now
Yeah.
I'll keep you alive to explain my evil plan.
Yeah.
In the original script, he was kept inside a wicker basket hanging from the ceiling.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
god!
It would be in keeping with the whole Sahane thing, where they
Right.
would put
Yeah.
men inside a giant wicker man and stuff and burn it all.
Right, like the Christopher Lee Wicker Man movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that whole thing with the Druids or the Irish or the Stonehenge or whatever, it's very light. You know, it's like they should have done a little more explanation or something, you know, to give us like, okay, you know, like how, you know, the director said at the convention, you know, like it's magic, man. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the orange juice guts and, you know, heads can be ripped right out. I mean, you'd have to be a really powerful, like Terminator style endoskeleton robot to be able to rip a human head off from the shoulders, you know?
Yeah.
They even say the coroner is talking to Dr. Chalice in the hospital. She says, this was done by someone with really, you know, a lot of upper arm strength, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She does hint at that.
Yeah, or at least their hands are really strong.
Yes.
Hydraulics.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like Ash is a goddamn robot.
When they're taking him to final processing, and the CEO is walking, he stops, looks at the beautiful morning of Halloween Eve, and he just takes a deep breath, and he goes like, and then he just keeps walking back, and it's like he's Mr. Halloween, right? He's crazy about this whole thing.
He's about to have the bloodletting of a century.
Well, you know,
And,
the other clue that I had about him was that at the end, when he's sort of golf clapping for the good guy, you know, because like,
he's discovered everything. Yeah,
congratulations, you beat me, you know, and he knew he was about to die. That doesn't seem
But he
like
don't
something
care.
a mortal human would do.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. Ha.
Yeah.
He gets turned into like a pillar of salt, right? Or something like that. He turns himself.
Pillar of flame, maybe, or
No, he doesn't burn. So you see So the funny thing here is that there's a piece of Stonehenge there, right? And then there's these
Right.
computers set in a circle, just like a sacrificial circle of Stonehenge.
Right,
Right?
Yeah.
And then when we
so
saw
it's science and technology mixed with magic and
right, so we saw that chip would fire this laser, and then of course, you
fry
know,
that lady's face.
Tom Atkins puts two and two together, and he's like, okay, well, I found a bag full of these chips, and then we're going to see that further ahead, but he's going to drop a bunch of those chips after he starts the triggering like commercial, and then there's going to be sparking everywhere, and that's where he kills all the robots that are on the computer, and then it creates this magic circle of light on the computers that's going to zap, you know, Cochrane.
Yeah, like the Elysium configuration.
Exactly, from Hellraiser 4, right?
Exactly.
And then it zaps him, and he turns into like this statue made out of salt or ash or something like that. You can see him.
Yeah.
It's just a mannequin covered in what looks like ash or something.
And it seemed to me that he's probably just getting, you know, banished back to wherever he came
Hell
from.
or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and he'll probably be back.
It would have been better if they had turned him into like a demon, right? That would have been cool. That would have been a cooler ending.
A big budget makeup effect. Yeah, cool creature.
I agree.
Yep.
But I think they shot their wad with the mask because I don't know if you found this in an article, Joe, but we'll send you a link or we can put it in the show notes. We found an article about saying that I believe Tom Burman did a gelatin pumpkin head that they put on a dummy, a polyurethane, which is a cold foam type of mannequin dummy of that child with the same clothing on, and they switched out the kid and the real mask for this fake dummy. And then they had the head heat, with heat from the outside, had this gelatin pumpkin head mask melting and kind of sloshing in like it's rotting on his head or something. And then all the bugs were pushed up through a big tube that came up on the inside, and the snakes and everything.
I see.
So that's how they did that effect.
I think that's coming up now because the family is just being brought into that kind of cell.
Yeah, it's like a family
think,
living room kind of.
Yeah,
living room.
And he says something like, "I think he just wants me to look at some commercials and see what works." And there's that ominous part where his wife. Yeah, the ominous part where his wife lifts up the curtain and realizes there's no window, there's just wall.
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole room is made out of steel.
And the kid has to put the mask on. The kid has to put the mask on to watch the commercials.
Yeah.
Like if he had just had the mask, sitting there on the table, what would have happened?
Yeah.
With all
and I think that's a part of the, a little bit of, the crack in the believability of this whole thing is that, Halloween, people are going to wear all kinds of costumes. They're not going to just only have three masks from.
What about the hobos? What about the kids that can't afford nothing but a sheet?
And they're all going to run home and watch this commercial, in the middle when they could be getting candy.
I think that the commercial.
They're going to be out trick-or-treating.
Yeah. And this was supposed to happen around 9:00 at night.
Oh, right? That's right. It's kind of late, I guess.
When kids 80s. Are already getting ready for bed. But I think that
they would have been home by 9.
Yeah. So I think that this commercial was supposed to be like the trigger sign for something else. Don't forget to watch the special.
Seizure disorder.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
But it said something like, don't forget to watch the special after this or something. So it was supposed to make them believe that they were going to watch something.
Some sort of new day dawning because of this.
This is a little bit, for anybody that has a kid, geez.
Yeah, it's pretty child negative, boy.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays.
To make it happen while the parents are sitting there watching and...
With all the human trafficking of children and everything these days, it's like, wow, this is pretty...
Yeah, but they set this kid up to be a jerk, so it's like...
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Oh, the mom just fainted.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing happens to her.
Well,
the husband, I think, gets bitten by the snake.
No, there's a quick pan of her with snakes latched onto her face and stuff.
Oh, yeah, going in her ear or something. That's right. I think they must have gotten the real lady to lay down, and they put a garden snake across her face or something.
Yeah. My real question here is, what happened to the laser? That's supposed to be the whole point of the chip. It's the laser. Yeah. Instead, it's just crickets and snakes.
I think it's only because she used a bobby pin and shorted it out that the laser came out.
Yeah, and I think it was, at least in this rewrite, it's like magical energy flying out of the chip into her face.
Right, but it's also science because of laser blue light.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, it makes no sense. To me, it doesn't,
Especially when he starts throwing the chips, scattering all the chips into the computer robot room, and they go sparky, sparky, spark. And
because the commercial is on. So that's my point. The commercial was supposed to make them shoot a laser.
Cues.
Yeah.
And that's what destroys all the robots. And
there's no snakes or crickets coming out of thin air when he throws the chips into they just throw lasers.
That's true.
That was the whole point.
The kid's wearing the mask, then the laser would be pointing in the wrong direction, or I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they had to be, like you said, what if the mask was just laying on the table? Maybe that wouldn't activated. Maybe it has to be put on.
Maybe a bunch of
head,
snakes had come pouring out of it then. But
this is us trying to justify the reasoning behind a really bad movie that was made in 1982.
You know what? Another thing too is another parallel to Invasion of the Body Snatchers is, you know, in the Donald Sutherland version, you know, the one that takes place in San Francisco. Toward the end of the movie, he climbs up on some catwalks in these big warehouses where they're growing all the pods, you know. And in this movie, he climbs up on a catwalk and he throws all the chips down at all the bad guys down below. In a very similar way, you know, to in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
These shots of kids on Halloween getting ready and buying masks, to me, that's the best part of the movie right here. Like this.
Yeah, because it's nostalgic about our Halloween trick-or-treat.
It's such a cool set of like shots, and it's just beautiful. Like the Los Angeles, California, where they're just walking.
The sun going down.
Yeah, the sun going down.
That was in the trailer, right? This shot right here of Los Angeles.
Yeah, if you watch the trailer, every scene is in the trailer. The whole movie's in the trailer.
Good old days.
I can't think of, maybe the exploding of the building at the end is not in the trailer, and maybe like the lady's, you know, head and arm getting ripped off and stuff aren't in the trailer, but a lot of the big stuff, like a lot of Dan O'Hurley's best lines, you know, are in the trailer, you know.
But if I can bring up something that would be incongruous in this whole thing, is that no company would make 7 or 8 different commercials to be played every day, one every day. I mean, nowadays and even
you
back
mean the
then,
countdown?
Like 8 days to Halloween, 6 days to Halloween, 5 days to Halloween. That just doesn't work that way. It just wouldn't work that way.
Well, if they have enough money, they can do whatever they want, I guess.
That's true.
Right, right. But national commercials, you know, basically you're right. They make one expensive commercial to run on all the nation stations, you know, in prime time or whatever, you know.
Well, they were really cheap to make, too. All they changed was the audio.
Right.
Oh, the scene where she realizes this is not a car part. Yeah. But I was hoping that she would like flip that part or something. It would be like a mechanical eye. That would have made it a lot cooler.
That's right. Yeah.
Also, her death is kind of boring because you don't actually see it. You just see her a Dremel. You know, he's going to drill her in the head. But you know, gosh, I mean, they break the continuity of all the other deaths of ripping heads off. You know,
or crushing their heads, or
right, like breaking their skull. So I would have thought it would have been, I think the only reason why they probably didn't do that is because she's a pretty woman, and maybe they didn't want the stunt manhandling her head or anything, you know.
Or maybe this particular model of robot was not strong enough to do that, so he needed a tool.
Nah, well, it was Dick Warlock again, you know.
It's not. No, this one isn't Dick Warlock. No? It's a different guy with his hair parted halfway.
Yeah, he's got black hair.
Yeah, he's got black hair.
Okay.
But this scene is underwhelming. I thought they could do a little more. She just plays fiddles with that little piece of looks like a bike bell.
Art. Yeah,
it looks like a bike bell. It would have been cooler if she had flipped something. It would be like she would wipe off the smudgy grime off of it and be like, it's an eye or something like that.
Right,
that's true. No, that's a really good point. I mean, and that wouldn't have been that expensive to do. They could have.
Well, you may think so.
Get a glass eye or something.
When you're actually making a movie and you've already budgeted everything, you know, you can't throw in something at the last minute, you know?
Yeah, it's like, we need a prosthetic eye. Oh, that's an extra $300. We can't do that. You know, we're not going to sign off on that.
Right.
Yeah. But that would have been cool.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But at this point, I mean, we already know these guys are robots, so it would have been useless to put that in there. But I just think it would have been a cooler reveal for her, for the character, to come up to that realization that, this is what I've been working on this whole time. He was a robot, and then the robot comes in.
Right. Also, you know, the thing is that I feel like, you know, as far as effects go, that, you know, they pepper them throughout the film so that there's, like I said, you know, there's a little bit in the beginning, you know, a death at the beginning, a middle effect death, you know, and then toward the end, you know, some big crescendo deaths, you know, where all that whole thing with all those guys getting zapped by the chips and the light beams and, you know, and then the building blowing up and all that, you know, that's your crescendo ending, your Bond, you know, ending.
Ed, did you ever make masks for Halloween haunts?
Oh, sure. I've got, gosh, if we were to you know, use Skype or FaceTime or whatever, where I could show you around my workshop, I've got maybe 100 molds, honey?
Wow, that would be amazing.
I've got a lot of molds, you know.
Wow.
Maybe we
But
can
they're
save that
not-
for a Halloween special. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But they're not like the ones you see on this mask making, factory, because those are one-piece molds that, in mass production, you get it to the point where you can make a thin mask very quickly, and it has no seam because it's a one-piece mold. It can flex out of the mold, once it's dry and powdered and stuff. And a lot of the collector's type masks, like the ones that I make, are so complex with teeth and horns and pointed ears and all this stuff that it's got either two pieces or maybe sometimes even three pieces, so that you can unmold it, without ripping the latex and stuff,
Right. So we're at the part where Mr. Cochran is giving him like the whole spiel about Samhain and the hills run red with blood.
Right.
This would have been so cool if there had been a reveal that he was like this demonic entity that was in the original idea for the story.
Even contact lenses or something would have been cool. Like if he would have just blinked and had demon eyes or something.
He has the perfect face for it. He's just has
I agree.
Yeah.
Meeting him in person was very cool, because I don't know if you've ever heard of this other movie he did called The Last Starfighter. Are you familiar with that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
He plays Grig, the lizard man alien in that.
Oh, is that him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Go
And he
figure.
has a great personality. He's like, he's all jolly and everything in that movie.
Well,
Yes.
it's nice to know that he played a good guy for once.
Oh, yeah. He plays grandpas, he plays all kinds of stuff, but he just has that gravitas.
Is
in
he
his
still
voice.
alive?
I don't know now today, but, when I met him on the set of RoboCop, 20-something years ago now, he was,
30-something years ago.
Yeah, he was in his elderly.
He passed
years.
away in 2005, aged 85.
There you go.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
But
He was a very nice man. I talked to him for a little bit,
Yeah.
I
So
got
now
to meet a
there's
lot of cool people on the set of RoboCop.
he was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yes.
He did some cowboy movies, I think, when he was younger.
Yep.
It was in Dr. Kildare. Let's see, what else did he do? Serpico.
That part in The Last Starfighter, though, that's a real memorable role, and to be covered completely with foam latex,
yeah.
And of course the RoboCop. Dick, you're fired.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throws him out the
It's
window.
the old man. That's his name.
Yeah.
The old man.
Yeah.
Oh, he was in Twin Peaks, for a few
Firewall.
episodes. He played Andrew Packard. I guess it must have been the guy who owned the Packard Mill. So this is the worst surveillance camera ever, because he's got robots who don't even have to blink. He's got a camera pointed right at him, and still he manages to escape, right? I mean,
Right.
that's
He
hilarious.
kicks the TV as long as he can kill the signal, so then he won't be fried in the head.
Exactly.
Gets the mask off, and then he throws the mask over the camera. But one of the things that Nina was mentioning too is, like, back in the 80s, video cameras, surveillance cameras were very rare. I mean, maybe a bank or someplace like that, but this was expensive. If this guy was a billionaire, he would have a factory outfitted with video cameras and stuff. And of course, it's integral to the plot, but it's kind of an interesting point that there weren't very common to see video cameras all over.
And they were
the place
huge. Nowadays, you can have sunglasses with a little camera on the side, and nobody knows you're filming.
Yeah.
Right. And these were like the size of a shoebox, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. That scene where he threw the mask to cover the camera, it took a long time to get it right.
To toss it
I
up there
bet.
again
Yes,
and again.
they could have just done a reverse. They could have just done a reverse shot of pulling it out of the camera. But I guess,
monofilament, yeah.
according to Tom Atkins, I think what happened was they were practicing, and he threw it in one hit.
He got it? Oh my
he
God.
hit it in one hit, and then they were like, all right, let's roll. And then he couldn't do it again, and it was just
Right.
over
Once in a
and over.
million. Like Sigourney Weaver, that shot where she shoots a basketball?
Oh, and Alien 4.
Yeah, she actually did that. That was live. That wasn't a trick.
Wow. Yeah, I think I heard on the commentary that it took her a lot of tries to do that.
Well, to practice, but then on camera, then they actually got it.
Oh, wow.
So, but anyways, it's interesting, that this film, it has its own ambiance. It's like it's a like a whodunit. Like they're trying to find out, what the gimmick is, what the that they're robots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they leave that to the very end, like like Ash's goddamn robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, think of all the movies where they had that, like Terminator, Alien, Westworld, these robot tropes, like you can always see that coming, like the certain things that robots always do in movies where they either fry, they get electrocuted, they burn up, some like Chucky,
they keep going
doll.
after their head comes off.
Yeah, or they're fried and melted, and they still are moving. Like the Terminator, with no legs, he still crawls after you.
Yeah,
classic. Another classic trope that we're looking at right now is the whole. Oh yeah, he's going to escape through the ventilator shaft.
Yeah,
I love that.
Which is like, if you guys ever like worked on a ceiling or a fake ceiling, that thing is just hanging there by a couple.
Fall down.
Yeah, that thing. Tom Atkins is like maybe 6 feet, like maybe 190 pounds, maybe 200. It's like that.
Probably
250. Yeah,
guy.
It looks like he was a football player. That would never fly. Yeah.
No. And the other thing too about, like, if you're trying to be stealthy and you're climbing around on those things, they get like dented from the. You're looking at it up in the ceiling and you're seeing it, hearing it going like. Big dents appearing in it.
Yeah.
Yep. There should be someone in the movie that does that, and then the guy looks up and just sees him going by punk, 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 punk.
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious.
I've only seen that in a couple movies where they actually, like, villains like shoot machine guns at that spot, like. And
They've got a lot of masks packed up in boxes to go out if it's supposed to be like one day to Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like we got to move the stock.
Yeah. Make so inexpensive for the art department.
Make them 80% off. Yeah.
So when they were doing that walkthrough of the factory and they showed a little bit of the post studios, one of the things I thought was very unrealistic is the way they were showing the mask making process, where it's like there's the negative of the plaster, right? And then they're just pouring this like almost like a gallon's worth of latex into it. And it's like, what are they doing? That would just make like a huge block. That would make a sculpture of the mask.
No.
Right?
They were filming actual production in the workshop, because when I make a mold, I use a 5-gallon bucket and I fill up the mold all the way to the brim to the top. And you let it sit for about an hour or two, depending on how thick you want it. And then you pour it out and you let it drain. And that lip of latex layer inside is the mask.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. I thought that would. I don't know why I thought that. I thought it would be put in layers or something, or sprayed inside.
No. You let it dwell, and it forms a skin.
Forms a skin onto the plaster, and then you pour the excess out. Okay, that makes sense.
You don't throw that out though. You can keep using.
No,
excess.
You resave it. You pour it back in your 5-gallon bucket.
Okay.
Nice.
So like a 5-gallon bucket used to be about $100, and you could make maybe a dozen masks, depending on how thick and what the design was, with $100. And so, you could take, 10, 12 masks down. Like I used to sell masks to my local, Spirit. I used to work at the Spirit here in Hayward, and the first Spirit ever, you guys know the Spirit chain, right? Everybody knows
of course.
I worked at one for one Halloween.
Did you? I worked at the very first one ever in existence. It was here in Hayward, walking distance from my house where me and Nina live right now. And I used to be their display guy. Like I would do all their window displays. And eventually when Freddy came out, they couldn't get enough Freddy masks. And I was, commissioned by the owner of the store to make a Freddy and start mass producing them and bringing them to the store and selling them there. So that's my background with mask making and Freddy and Spirit, And then eventually that man, his name was Joe Marver. He sold the business to Spencer's Gifts.
Yeah.
And now they have them nationwide in tons of locations.
It's always fun to go there when they open up at a strip mall and you go there and it's they got all that the zombie on the floor that you put on your backyard and the things that you step on and make them go like
jump up,
jump up out of a barrel and stuff, and that's just awesome. I saw a documentary once about the factory in America that makes most of those, and they come up with new sculpts and stuff to put into inside haunts and
Distortions Unlimited. You must have seen. It's an old show
that was it.
with Jordu Schnell, who was one of their top sculptors, and he's one of the top sculptors in Hollywood as well.
Yeah.
I love that show. There's a show, if anybody out there wants to watch it, it's on YouTube. It's the Distortions Unlimited channel, and
That's
it's got
exactly
tons
it.
of episodes. It's great. I love that show. Ed Edmonds, he's one of my mentors. It's like when I was a kid buying the Distortions masks, the Don Post masks. That's what's interesting about this movie is, they went to Don Post because for the Shape mask, the Captain Kirk, they went to Don Post for that, for the original movie. But it could have been Distortions. Like Distortions is another big mask company. They're in Greeley, Colorado, and they've been making, like Alien, and they've had tons of licenses like the Outer Limits, like that mask that you wore, the 6-finger. That was
right with the super evolved man with the pointy
6-finger from Outer Limits.
Yeah. And the big head and the pointy ears. Absolutely.
Right.
It's interesting watching this part again because now you're watching Ellie from the point of view of knowing that she's a robot. Is she acting like Is she acting like a robot now, or is
I thought she did because she didn't say anything, and the whole rest of the movie she doesn't say anything.
Mighty quiet,
Yeah. And even though the way her face is almost expressionless and she just stands there and doesn't really say much.
Yeah.
And it does take her a while to reveal herself. She doesn't really help Mr. Cochran.
Yeah, she just attacks him while he's behind the wheel.
It's almost
Trojan
like
horse.
She's just done as a practical joke against him.
Yeah, she was just meant to be. So do you think the real Ellie was killed?
Yes.
Yeah, she probably.
I think that it's just like in the Stepford Wives or in Westworld or any movie where they replace the person with a robot. You guys are going to love this part. So you see that he's dropping those chips, and after he started the commercial, and there's lasers and sparks everywhere. Here's what Tommy Lee Wallace's script describes the following scene. Okay, so the microchips find their targets, guards shudder and go rigid all around. Yeah. As the sparks flash into them, they tumble to the floor. Cochran stands for a moment, looking up at Chalice. He seems almost impressed by the turn of the tables. Something close to a smile crosses his lips. And then he's covered with sparks, as if a swarm of fiery hornets have covered him. On Chalice and Ellie on catwalk. The flashing and sparking from below illuminate Chalice and Ellie running away down from the catwalk. Cochran undergoes the most appalling change. He seems to be swelling to a monstrous size, towering above the fallen guards around him. His head is bulging, pushing outward into some strange shape. It continues to swell, melting, changing into the shape of a grotesque pumpkin. And then Cochran collapses, a twitching heap on the floor, dead. I don't think a pumpkin would have been good. I've never liked pumpkins as masks. Like even this Halloween mask that they made for the movie, the pumpkin style, it's my least favorite design of all Halloween masks.
That's what they probably
ironically, the other movie, that Trick or Treat movie we've talked about, that anthology movie, that little villain, monster character in that movie has a pumpkin for a head. So ironically, I like the movie Pumpkinhead though. It's a monster.
Yeah.
But just a jack-o'-lantern for a head, I don't like.
Well, Pumpkinhead was inspired by Rawhead Rex.
Is that right? Who said that?
Oh,
where'd you hear that?
I can't even remember now.
I mean, Stan Winston directed it, and it was his first directorial film.
I think that they had wanted to make a Rawhead Rex movie and couldn't, or something like that, because there's the other one already.
Wow, I'd like to find out where you found that out.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Because I know Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff and stuff, they designed it and made it and operated it and everything.
Yeah, I thought Pumpkinhead was based on some sort of story that existed.
Oh yeah. No, I mean just the design. The design was inspired by Rawhead Rex.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Here she comes.
Yeah.
She's going to attack him.
That wonderful. Optical effect there with the factory burning up. You can kind of tell it's an optical effect because the orange is too orange. But yes, here she is now attacking him with her nails.
Yeah,
I heard that building, that factory, was like a powdered milk factory.
It's a milk factory. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. In Lolita, California.
Oh.
So now her nails, and Nina was saying that she was looking extremely made up, right before this scene, like when he rescues her. She's way more made up.
She does. She has eyeshadow and lipstick and stuff.
So it's like the robot was given a fresh paint coat,
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And her arm falls off in the car accident.
Yeah, you know, what's funny is like before I even knew that scene was going to happen, I was telling Nina, because we were listening to a podcast where they were talking about Shaun of the Dead, where there's this actor who has one arm, you know, he's an amputee in real life. He was in the Shaun of the Dead as a zombie. And I was saying like, he's got his arm off, you know, which is from Shaun of the Dead. It's a line that Shaun says.
I remember that.
This woman is like, she's got an arm off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a cool effect there. We see the hydraulic trying to move on her shoulder, and it's yep, and bam, there goes her head off.
Yep, just
Pretty
like
cool.
Ash.
Yeah, it does look just like Ash.
He would have a lot of
damn robot.
He would have a lot of material evidence to back his story up.
Yeah.
He certainly would.
I mean,
And
and
then
the factory, you know.
But this scene goes on for a little longer than it should, because I don't like the way that he gets into the car and then the arm attacks him, and then he gets out of the car,
Yeah,
and then the
it's like-
body comes back to life and attacks him
Yeah,
again.
that's
It's
too
like
much.
Carrie. It's like Carrie or like Terminator, where you know you thought you crushed the Terminator, and then no, it's still alive. You know, the red eye glows again. You know.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
why?
in Carrie, she's in the dream, she's putting the flowers on the grave, and then all of a sudden, the hand pops up.
Yeah.
goes on for way too long, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody thinks at this point that he's going to die from that arm.
They really milk the whole, special effect that they were doing here.
Yeah.
And it's one of those kind of things where it's like, like Lord of the Rings, where it's like, how many endings does this movie have? You know?
Yes, Return of the King.
Yeah,
wow.
That's true.
It's over. No, it's not over. It's okay,
According to Deborah Hill, this wasn't so much a knife movie, but she called it more of a pod movie, like pod.
Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah. Yep.
The pod
I mean,
people.
come on now, really?
Yeah, it's finally gone. It's finally dead.
Yeah.
But
Sorted out all the brake
It
fluid.
was just a lucky guess where he was, since the thing had no head. How is it even?
you know what I like too is that they have the trunk open, so as he comes around the car, that's got a big reveal where you don't see what's going on with her until he clears around the trunk.
Yeah.
Then it's like, bah!
Yeah.
And now he's going to run from Lolita, California, all the way, or from Santa Mira to all the way to wherever he's going.
Yeah,
where his family is. Yeah. But it's so funny the way it ends with just him yelling, screaming. It's very similar to the way the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers ends, where he's screaming at the camera, screaming at you, saying, "You're next! You're next!"
Yes, exactly. He looks straight at the camera in this one too. Yeah. Yep.
So Tommy Lee was a big fan of Invasion, obviously.
Yeah. And you can tell this is the days before cable was too big of a thing, because he's like, no, all 3 channels.
Right. He has to call all 3 stations.
Nowadays, it would be a lost cause. It would be like 100 channels playing this.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube and.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's the archives of things too, like how people have their what do they call those, the devices that record stuff.
DVRs, yeah.
DVRs, yeah. They have those. It would never get off the airwaves.
This ended up novelized as a book, and it was a book that had credited Tommy Lee Wallace and Jack Martin. Jack Martin actually is a pseudonym for Dennis Etchinson.
Oh. And Carpenter, I think, contributed a little too originally to the story, but he takes credit.
Yeah, and also Dennis Etchison wrote an unproduced script for Halloween 4, which I believe would have Michael growing in size up to 12 feet. He would the people would be shooting at Michael, and he would start growing to 6 feet, 7 feet, and then 12 feet, and he would be a literal representation of the fear of that city, right? So,
you know what's crazy is that is kind of what happens in 5 million Years to Earth. The creature, the big bug, satanic-looking thing, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I thought I had forgotten that they end this on this sort of cliffhanger that you don't really know if it's kind of
his kids could have
his own kids could have been killed depending on what station they're watching, and maybe they're like those other kids that it stopped working on this channel, let's change the channel.
Because for sure the ex-wife would not take away the masks that she gave to her kids.
No, even though he told her to, she's just like,
You're drunk.
Here's what I heard. Tom Atkins was asked at a convention, so, what happens, Tom? Like, did you stop that station from playing the commercial? And he says, "You're damn straight I did. You're goddamn right." It's like, I'm a hero. It's like, so that's according to him.
That's funny when people ask that. Like, what happens after the end of the story? Nothing happens. The story's over.
Yeah.
It's weird that people ask.
Kids.
Yeah. It's weird that people want to know what happens after the story ended.
Yeah, in between the lines.
Yes.
What happens in between the pages?
Well, I think about that stuff. I mean, I would never ask the actor.
Right.
Why? They often come up with backstories that we never hear, like Chatterer and stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you guys think of that woman's face when her lips and stuff got pulled back when the lasers were zapping her in the hotel room? Nina said it kind of looked like Chatterer's mouth.
Yeah, it did kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought about when we interviewed Simon Bamford, I asked him his character, the Butterball, never got sent home with the rest of them. Did he have to walk back to hell?
The ceiling crashes on top of his head, right?
Yeah.
And what's his backstory? Was he a gourmet, a cook? What was his deal?
Didn't they come up with something like that for the little NECA figurines?
For Screamin' too, I think the Screamin' box has in the instructions page. They usually write some little backstory thing.
Yeah, I think
whether it makes sense or is canon or not is
figurine set. His name was Laszlo or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They just make it up as they go along.
Yeah. Animation courtesy of Bakshi Productions from Ralph Bakshi.
That's interesting.
Oh, so that was the animation of the laser beams and stuff, probably.
Yep.
All those
copyright
effects.
82 Dino De Laurentiis Corporation. All rights reserved.
Interesting.
Good old Dino.
Yeah, they did like Conan the Barbarian.
Right. Yeah, and he had a studio over in Italy that he lost his shirt and had to sell it out. And before he sold it, he ripped out all the plumbing and the electrical wiring and everything. Yeah, they gutted it for every value they could get out of it before they, hightailed it out of there. Yeah. And they left it behind.
That's then the end of the credits. I'm just telling myself for when I'm editing.
Okay. Then they used that same studio for like Charles Band's, productions, Full Moon, and those low budget films.
Halloween will continue on Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that one, even though I do recommend watching that one. I think it's pretty good. I think they did a good story with The Return. Yeah. Some people may complain about, he burned to death at the end of the second one, and now Donald Pleasance has like a little scar on his face, and like, but I think it was a good return for what it was. So, and
since we're not going to do that one, have you heard the story about how Donald Pleasance, I guess, was with a girlfriend? Like he, at his age, he was, on the location. They were looking at dailies, and she was a little tipsy in the dailies with him, and she saw the burn on his face, and she said it looked like a fried egg, and he got upset and told the makeup people and the producers, "I'm going to reshoot all my scenes with that makeup. I want it redone." So that little burn you see from the rest of the point is the redone makeup.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Face.
So, I rented this on iTunes, and it looks like it's got a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, according to this.
Is that good?
No, I don't think so.
Oh. Okay.
It's like an F.
It does have its fans, though. It does have its, it has its detractors, but it also has its fans.
Yeah.
And, one of the things also about that Donald Pleasance comment, is that he had a big scar in Bond, remember?
He did, yeah. It says Blofeld, right?
Right. So you'd think he'd be okay with that.
Yeah, but that was much cooler.
I guess. Yeah. It's like a dueling scar as opposed to a fried egg.
Yes. He looks like he should have a monocle and,
Right.
Very, very stylish character there.
Actually, I worked on a makeup like that for a German Nazi character where he had a monocle, and I put a big scar, and I gave him a white ball. My eyes are starting to go like that, really white contact lens, to make a blind eye across where the scar went down his eye. Yep, it was a white contact lens because I own several contact lenses for makeup effects.
Perfect.
I have demon ones.
You can't kill the boogeyman, so that's one of the things that caused this movie to fail, is that fans and fandom in general do tend to obsess and get drawn into small aspects of a movie. Like, for example, they never thought Pinhead was going to become so iconic, but people really got drawn to that character because of the visuals.
Right.
And the same thing happened with Halloween. So when they try to change it up and mix it up a little bit, the fans, there were already 2 movies. People were pretty, interested in Michael Myers, and, it just didn't work. That's just the nature of fandom. Just think about,
though, what would have been like a parallel universe somewhere out there. They did make a popular Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and it did continue with a series of other films in the vein of a different story for every film. What would that have been like? It would have been very interesting.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think it would have been like Creepshow or something like that.
Yeah.
Where, for example, you have that story from the Tales of the Crypt of the woman who's alone in the house and it's Christmas night and there's a murder with an axe.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
With the original one was Joan Collins in the classic movie version.
Yeah, that's a great segment. I just love those anthology formats and stuff.
Me too. They used to call Tales.
Tales from the Hood is having a movie with Tony Todd.
Right.
Yeah. So the first one was really good, and I heard some bad things about the sequel that came out recently.
Oh, really?
But I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Oh.
So, but then Tony Todd's supposed to be in Tales from the Hood 3.
Oh, really? They're making a third?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's I just saw that today. He's going to be in the third one, apparently. So that's
who was interesting in that movie that was an actor I hadn't seen in a long time when it was made was the guy who played Link on the Mod Squad, the man who was the owner of the funeral home, who was sawing legs off to fit them in the coffins and stuff. That guy, he was really weird and creepy.
Yeah.
I need to get back into that. I need to get back into those older movies that are also mentioned in Clive Barker A through Z of Horror, right?
Yes, and you know what they're called in England? They call them portmanteau films. I don't know why, portmanteau. Because like the Amicus ones, like the Asylum and, there's quite a few of them. They're not all Hammer. There's some that are other companies.
Sure, yeah.
They call them Penny Dreadfuls, and there's quite a few cool.
There's a TV show that I hear good stuff about called Penny Dreadful. I haven't gotten into that.
Oh, I watched the first season before I was blind. Yeah, it was awesome. It had great makeup effects and good acting, good stories. It kind of lost its way in the second and third season, but the first season's really good. Very gothic.
I should get into that.
It's like the Sherlock Holmes. It's like one of the like the the Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmeses, or the ones that are done with Jeremy Brett, or the ones with the period ones with
Basil Rathbone.
Yes, like those kind of films. It's in that vein and style, and you'd like it. I really think.
Oh, I like that. Yes, yeah. So Ryan, what's coming up next? I know we got more news.
Yeah. Well, if as more news comes out, I mean, there hasn't been much news lately, but and then Abarat 3 we'll be doing in a little while, a few weeks. We'll be covering Abarat 3. We'll be going on to the letter F is for Flesh, which is H.R. Giger movies, so movies that he participated in. And
yes, I've got some suggestions. I'll send you guys some links and some names of films and stuff.
Sure. I mean, a few come to mind. Alien, of course. Future Kill is another one from 1985.
Actually, though, have you seen Future
Species?
Kill?
I've seen
Future Kill. Yeah,
it's terrible.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't have nothing to do with Giger except for the poster, and there's like a weird mask that one of the characters has that Giger didn't design it or nothing. It's just the poster.
Right. All he did was the.
There's
cover.
Some minor connection with Poltergeist 2 as well, because he was conceptual artist for that.
That is much more Giger.
It's the tequila worm is the big part. The big thing of that he swallows. He
created the designs.
And Species and Species 2, and then of course my personal favorite and suggestion is Killer Condom, because it's just 1996
That's so
movie,
over the top, and it's got Doug Bradley.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
What did he? I've never seen that one. What did he do?
He plays a prisoner. He plays this weird prisoner who has something to do with his baldness.
No, I mean,
right?
what
you're thinking about Killer Tongue. You're thinking about
okay,
Killer
I'm sorry.
Tongue,
Not Condom.
where Robert Englund and Doug Bradley are in that movie,
Okay.
Killer Tongue. Whereas a meteorite from space falls into a soup that a nun is eating, and she turns into a dominatrix. It's a crazy, crazy movie. But I'm talking about Killer Condoms. It's a weird 1996 movie, I think. Giger made some sculptures for condoms filled with this white substance and animal skulls at the bottom of the condoms, and then they just go around killing people. So it's
what? Ironically enough, I have a friend, that guy Stephen Leba, who was an artist for the Hellraiser comic book series that I've told you about.
Yeah.
He knew Giger personally. He visited Giger at his home and spent, several weeks in the castle and stuff. And he got Giger to send me, Giger would fax stuff all the time, like all the designs for Species were sent, to Steve Johnson's workshop through fax. And Giger was drawing a lot of stuff with ballpoint pen and faxing it and stuff. Well, I have a fax that was given to me by my friend Stephen Leba that was Giger sent to him of condom designs. These weird, dildos or condoms that are bizarre, and they have points and spikes and stuff on them. And, and he signed it to me. It's framed. It's a little. I'll see if Nina can get a scan or a picture of it and send it to you.
Yeah. So I got the trailer for Killer Condom. I'll add it here to the show notes as a possible, contender for because it seems like this would be a hoot to make a commentary track for.
Yeah, and when I send you the titles of some of these other ones, like I was telling you about, that were done by Roger Corman's studio, and people like James Cameron worked on them and stuff, and then he went on to work on Alien 2. So there's all this weird, tissue between these connections.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I've got to get going because I've got a 10 o'clock thing to go to.
And we also have possibly Abarat 3 coming up soon at some point.
Right,
so,
Yeah, the only thing I could say about this film in closing is, ironically, with the COVID, with the mask thing, we have masks galore with this movie. So you could make some sort of comment in the show notes or whatever about like, hey, wear your mask.
And this commentary having a beginning is now over.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you guys later.
Take care, you guys. Lots of fun. Thank you. Take care.
You can find the show notes for this episode and join the discussion over at www.clivebarkercast.com. We've got an archive of past episodes, news, features, and reviews, along with all the ways you can connect with us. You can subscribe on every other place you can find podcasts. Share your thoughts with us and share our podcast with your friends. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and news blog that's not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.